Let's talk about Nvidia. Obviously, that was the darling. It's been the darling in years past. It was the darling of 2024. Now what? You know, it's off the highs of 153. Some of your thoughts?
Yeah, I love the consolidation period we've been on, and I love the fact that we're rallying back here. You know, a couple of weeks ago, people were looking at this chart thinking, hey, this looks like a topping formation, a head and shoulders top, really defined neckline, and we did not succumb to that head and shoulders top. Instead, it turned into a failed move. I think that could be a fast move. I think it's been fantastic to come right back up to close to the all-time highs. It's been a great move again, but again, cautiously optimistic. I think with all of these stocks in this market, so headline driven, there's going to be a lot of volatility. We've seen a lot of volatility just over the past week and a half. So it's certainly what comes up can also come down. So I'm certainly very cautious about that with all of my trades. I'd love to buy Nvidia on any pullbacks, and I love to own it here at the same time. I don't know if we're going to have another 30% or 50% year out of Nvidia, given the fact that we're close to 40 PE on the multiple. So I'd be very happy with the 10 to 20% year out of Nvidia. So I'd be looking at selling upside calls and also selling downside puts to get back in if we do have a correction. And in the meantime, owning at the money calls, just owning that at the money gamma, at the money volatility, and being willing to sell the market if it goes higher, being willing to buy the market if it goes lower.
Given that we rocketed straight up in the air during the trading session on Wednesday, it appears that Nvidia will fall back a little in the early hours of the morning. To be honest, it is not a major surprise. Nevertheless, I continue to believe that this market is attempting to generate enough pressure to eventually break out. After all, President Trump and tech executives have declared a $500 billion technology investment in artificial intelligence in the United States, and this is the main premise of the movie. The majority of semiconductor businesses performed exceptionally well on Wednesday, and Nvidia will undoubtedly be no exception. This is an example of a purchase on the downturn scenario. In 2025, is it possible that Nvidia will surpass Apple as the world's largest company? Based on market value, Nvidia and Apple are the two biggest corporations globally. As of this writing, Nvidia is the second biggest company with a valuation of about $3.38 trillion, while Apple is the largest company with a valuation of $3.46 trillion. Interestingly, these two tech behemoths dominate distinct segments of the hardware industry. The industry leader in creating cutting-edge graphics processing units, GPUs, for data center computing and artificial intelligence, AI, is Nvidia. Apple, on the other hand, controls the majority of worldwide operating revenues from mobile phone sales and dominates the smartphone industry with its iPhone models. The fact that Apple and Nvidia are hardware-focused companies makes their ranking at the top of the list of the most valuable corporations in the world all the more remarkable, as software-focused companies are often more profitable. However, Nvidia may be poised to generate better stock performance and become the most valuable business in the world this year, even though, in 2025, Apple should be able to continue keeping very high profit margins on its mobile hardware and other products. Due to the company's enormous sales and profitability growth fueled by the growing demand for AI solutions, Nvidia's stock has been on an extraordinary run. The share price of the AI leader surged 131.5% in the past year, and for brief intervals in 2024, it was the largest corporation in the world and had a larger market capitalization than Apple. Even while Nvidia's business has historically been influenced by the semiconductor industry's cyclical demand trends, and will have to contend with more difficult growth comparisons in 2025, its outlook still seems more promising than Apple's. China, Apple's second-largest geographic area by revenue, is experiencing some performance issues. In order to integrate its Apple Intelligence platform into its most recent iPhones, the mobile hardware behemoth has failed to locate a suitable Chinese partner. So, what implications does this have for Nvidia's stock? Let's explore that. But first, a big thank you to those of you who've stuck with us this far. Creating these videos takes significant effort and dedication, so if you're enjoying the content, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and share your thoughts on Nvidia stock in the comments. Your support truly helps us grow. Now, let's get back to the video.
Okay, Rick, you got to take a look at this chart. Nvidia, please.
It's certainly one that's always worth watching here, this powerhouse of the tech sector. And as we look at the chart, it presents us with some interesting questions here. So for starters, when we look back here, this green line represents an old high closing point. Not exactly, but just around that general area of 135 is where we topped out twice, forming this M-type shape here. We had a subsequent rally that did not clear that point. Then, after we did break out above that area, we had our highs near 153 or so, and now we're kind of backing off. We did have intraday highs beyond that level late last year. We had a very, what probably felt like a very scary, big red bearish engulfing candle that took us all the way back down in the subsequent days to this support area, this area that I'm circling here between these old highs and the subsequent highs here. So 130 to 135, we found support there multiple times during these downward moves. So this seems like a key area to watch here, but the shorter term, sharper downtrend has been broken. A longer term, much more modestly sloping downtrend, though, could still be in play here. This is based on the closing prices here, and that's about where we topped out yesterday. So broadly speaking, though, uptrend is still in play. You could draw this longer term white trend line going across the lows, and it still would be in play here. RSI more triangular, bouncing in an increasingly narrowing range between our two trend lines. We are above the 50 midline, so more of a bullish lean, but prices stalling out at this shorter term resistance area. RSI is exhibiting matching behavior. So if we were to look at our volume and standard deviation channels, well, there's a node right about here, 139 or so. That's a heavy trading area. It lines up with two of our moving averages, yellow 21-day, orange 63-day EMA, and that green line, the start of our support zone that I mentioned. So 135 to 139, there's a lot going on there. And then the extreme low point, maybe around 130, matches up with another node. So those are some areas to keep in mind to the downside. To the upside, the double top highs near about 153. And then, based on that old wedge, maybe you could see some resistance right around this area near 168 or so. These old trend lines can come back into play. Not saying it's going to happen, just that it could. Finally, the +1 channel, standard deviation channel, is around 175.
Look, I mean, you got to show us all the scenarios, right? I'm thankful that you're bringing all those in. Thank you for that. A quick thought here, Joe.
Yeah, I think Rick nailed it. Very heavily watched chart. There's a lot of activity on it. It just makes a lot of sense to have some levels looking to buy it and looking to sell it. For me, if it comes down 130 area, 120 area, that seems like an accumulation spot for me. Love holding it. If we do trade it to the higher end of the range, it seems sensible to me to have a short call against it, just because I'm not looking for another 200% return on the year.
All right, last but not
Following President Donald Trump's announcement of plans to make significant investments in artificial intelligence infrastructure, Nvidia was poised to end a 3-day winning streak on Thursday. On Wednesday, Nvidia's stock surpassed and stayed above the 50-day moving average. Is it time to purchase or sell the stock? Trump said late Tuesday that OpenAI, Oracle, SoftBank, and other businesses will form a joint venture called Stargate, which would invest up to $500 billion over 4 years to construct data centers and other infrastructure for AI applications. Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla, expressed some skepticism on Twitter and X, claiming that they lack the necessary funds. Nvidia's stock also suffered when South Korean chip manufacturer SK Hynix expressed worries about the market for its processors. High-bandwidth memory chips from SK Hynix enable the high-speed computing required for AI applications when combined with Nvidia's cutting-edge processors. Shares increased on Tuesday after it was reported that Trump has withdrawn a directive from former President Joe Biden requiring certain AI companies to notify the government of their safety test results prior to making them public. According to Dow Jones market data, it assisted Nvidia in overtaking Apple as the biggest firm by market capitalization during Tuesday's session. UBS analysts stated that they anticipate solid fiscal first-quarter guidance and results for the current quarter. While Nvidia's product mix is moving away from Hopper and toward Blackwell yields have increased. As the semiconductor leader builds inventory, analysts also envision income streams from original equipment manufacturers. According to UBS, Hanhai anticipates shipping the GB200 rack system using Blackwell chips sooner than anticipated. In the January-ended quarter, Blackwell's total sales increased from $5 billion to $9 billion. Estimates for total sales for the fourth quarter are $42 billion, with $47 billion expected in the April quarter. UBS kept its buy recommendation and price target at $185. To stay informed about the latest developments from Nvidia and the ever-changing stock market, consider subscribing to our investing tutorial channel. We provide daily updates on significant market shifts and key catalysts, so hit that subscribe button to ensure you never miss crucial information. We'd love to hear your thoughts on Nvidia stock, so please share your opinions in the comments below. Now let's dive into today's video.
Got a chart that looks at Nvidia. You watch its correlation with silver. Hit me with that real quick, KG, because we're definitely going to be watching the chips closely today.
Yeah, and we should be watching them closely for the next couple of days and weeks here. But, you know, there actually has been a very tight correlation over the last year. Now, this is a 6-month chart, but over the last year of silver and chips in general, especially when you're looking at Nvidia, is kind of that growth story. Obviously, silver is kind of used in these GPUs. But what I find actually very interesting here, among all of the news that we've seen with potentially $500 billion from the Stargate deal, along with, you know, some chatter, there were some news reports that, you know, Saudi Arabia might be investing up to $600 billion here in the United States as well. On top of that, that's a growth story that's going to require a lot of infrastructure, that's going to require a lot of material. But if you kind of notice, none of the material related commodities are actually catching a bid off of any of this news. In fact, you're seeing a pretty decent divergence. So I'm just going to be looking at this correlation here to see if it comes back in a line here. And is it going to be silver kind of catching up to what Nvidia has done over the last couple of trading sessions? Or do we see a breakdown from Nvidia? Usually what we've seen in the past over the last year and a half is that silver leads Nvidia, silver leads the chips. Right now, that might not be the case. Maybe you know, there might be a disconnect here, but this is something that I've been watching a lot lately, and it's been pretty much on the mark all last year. Right now, that massive divergence is one of the bigger ones that I've seen for a long time here.
Okay. Interesting. All right, so maybe Nvidia.
Many goods and services must have a domestic operating partner in order to be offered in China due to regulations imposed by the government. Because of this, the iPhone 16s in China lack the Apple Intelligence platform and must contend with a more difficult competitive landscape. In the domestic market, Apple is also subject to some regulatory pressures. The business was sued for antitrust in March of last year by the U.S. Department of Justice, DOJ, which claimed that it had illegally monopolized the smartphone market by entangling developers in its ecosystem through contractual constraints. It's uncertain whether the iPhone manufacturer will profit from the DOJ's potential to handle antitrust cases and other issues more passively under the Trump administration than it did under the Biden administration. With $391 billion in sales during the previous 12 months, Apple reported a gross profit of $180.7 billion, or a 46.2% gross margin. During the same period, Nvidia reported a gross profit of $85.9 billion on $113.3 billion in sales, which translates to a 75.8% gross margin. Therefore, Nvidia's gross profit margin is far better than Apple's, despite Apple having produced significantly larger overall sales and gross profit over the past year. When considering the recent sales trend for both companies, this difference becomes even more important. In its most recent reported quarter, Nvidia's sales climbed 94% year over year to $35.1 billion. During that time, earnings per share increased by 111% yearly to $0.78. To put it in perspective, Apple's revenue climbed 6% annually to $94.9 billion, and its diluted earnings per share surged 12% to $1.64. Given that market data from Counterpoint Research shows that iPhone unit shipments fell 5% year over year in the final quarter of 2024, it will be more challenging for Apple to increase sales with its next financial report. Apple may need to release a new product or software service offering with a more revolutionary impact in order to resume higher sales and earnings growth. Although the company's iPhone lines consistently generate high sales and profit margins, the smartphone market is crowded, making it more difficult to Apple achieve growth. On the other hand, Nvidia's GPU demand is expected to remain robust in 2025 because to continued investment in AI infrastructure and the introduction of the company's new Blackwell processors should help boost sales growth and profit margins. I believe that Nvidia has a very good possibility of reclaiming the title of world's most valuable company from Apple and maintaining it for the majority of this year. Don't forget to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your input helps create a more knowledgeable community where we can all learn and grow together in the world of investing. Stay up to date with the latest market trends, insights, and key updates by subscribing to Investing Tutorial. We're here to help you make smarter investment decisions and stay ahead of the curve.